Good afternoon and welcome back to my mid-school life. Today we have something very unusual and very rare, and yes, I'm aware that rare doesn't equal expensive, but I've never cared about that, and I'll tell you now that no collector ever would. We don't collect this stuff for money, we don't do it for gain. We do it to just basically have something that is good to have. So before I start the video today, I want to just make a quick mention that none of the bikes that you see on my channel will ever be for sale. If they are, then I will do a video letting you know. But there's a lot of scamming going on at the moment, and a couple of the groups I'm joined to on Facebook are being absolutely bombed with it. So yeah, if you ever see one of the bikes in these videos going up for sale, you know it isn't, it's a scam. Alright, so what we've got today is, like I said, something very rare. It's a 1998 4Bike Co. Battletech. It was a rider owned company out of Northern California, or NorCal, and it is and was owned by Brad Hodges. He's known as Brad 4130 on the BMX Museum. Apparently he still has some of these in his warehouse, because they really were an absolutely tiny company. Now, I have spoken to Brad, who's been an absolute legend and a super nice bloke. He's given me some really golden information about these. The prototype frame, which you won't see here, was made at Solid Bikes. There was one of those made, and then Brad outsourced the frame building to MAS, which is MAAS, sorry, and they were based in Baton Rouge in Louisiana. I don't know if they're still there, but they made quite a few of the legendary Midschool frames. They made barcodes, they made quite a few. Now only 50 of these frames were ever made. And Brad had another model made, and he only had 50 of those made as well. So if you ever find one, you've got one of 50, and like I said, they didn't all even sell back then, so you have one of even fewer. And like I said, rarity does not always equal value. I have no idea what this bike's worth. I don't care. I just am absolutely stoked to have something this rare and this unusual, especially me being in England, in my collection. Now, the handlebars were made by S&M. An order was placed with Chris Muller, and those are called 4Bike Company sway bars. And again, there were only enough sets made to go with the frames, and that was it. They're a V-bar, they're typical mid-school, very low rise, they're not terribly wide. Mine haven't been cut either, which is nice. On the bike I've got a demolition jar head stem that came to me a couple of years ago in a bad state. I've restored that, sat in black paint, makes it look like it's anodized. You never know that it's not anodized unless you basically took a load of it off and realised that it was paint and not anodizing. The grips on the bars are Animal Edwin De La Rosa flange grips. They're out of production now. They're probably 10 years old. They came to me on another bike that I pulled them off of, cleaned them up and used them on this. We've got S&M bar ends, just the plastic ones. I really wanted something that was period correct for this bike. The levers on it are made by Fishbone. They have skulls on the end of the lever, so I've always referred to those as Fishbone skull levers. I bought those NOS, couple of pairs of those quite a while ago, knew that I'd get around to using them one day, and sure enough. We've got a Tange tank headset. It's Tange. I don't care if you want to say Tangay or whatever the stupid name. It's Tange, mate, alright? In England it's Tange. Simple as that. Proper Bike Company top plate, that was gold. I've dipped that in caustic soda and brought that back to silver and polished it up. Snafu Mobius gyro, which again has been dipped because it was red. That's been polished up, now that's silver. Got a Snafu Astroglide linear dual upper cable. Now thankfully I'd modified one of these Fishbone levers a couple of years ago to work with that cable. It was due to go on my Morales, But then I got those standard 6-piece strip bars for the Morales, and they are a 1-inch brake lever unless you want none of your grip area left. So I never used them, they've been sitting in the packet, the levers. I've got a new old stock Dragonfly Mosher fork. I bought that off of a guy on the Rad forums years ago. It's been on a bike or two, never really looked right. I think it was the bikes, not the fork, because the fork is absolutely lovely. Very, very heavy though. Got an Odyssey 1999 front brake. I don't know if this is new old stock. I just know that it's Midschool. Come in the packet. I don't know if they found some or whether Odyssey had a load made. I really don't know, and I don't care. I know I've had people in the past telling me I'm stupid for using that brake on other bikes, but it doesn't have any lugs on the forks. So what are you going to do? I'm not running a plate on there. I'll just run a side pull brake. It's not like I'm going to ride the thing, is it? It weighs 38.5 pounds. Why would I ride it? It's there purely for show. I've got dual Odyssey slip cables. The frame has a built-in London mod with dual cable routing, which is really neat. I've used some Odyssey NARPs to make up those cables. I've got a original AD 990 rear brake on it. Don't like putting more modern brakes on these bikes. They don't look right, and sometimes they don't work right either. These frames were designed around that brake because back then that was pretty much the only one that you could get. I'm aware that there was some Shimano big ones, but they didn't come till later. I've put cool stock fat pads on it again. They are a little bit big for the rims, but they just look super overdone, and Midschool love that. Some big city rims. These are new old stock. They're laced to seal ProLite hubs, which are also new old stock. I've got a 16 tooth Dicta freewheel on the back. Say that one when you're drunk. I've got a G-Sport Mark 1 gland on the non-drive side on the rear wheel. I wanted those on the front to make it look even more ridiculous, but unfortunately the peg bosses on the fork were hitting it, and so it wouldn't work. And then of course on the other side I've got a freewheel on there, so that wouldn't go on either. Panaracer HP 406 tyres. I've always liked these, rode them in the Midschool as well when you could get your hands on them, if you found them like old stock or whatever. Great tyres, not too fat. Don't like fat tyres on Midschool bikes. They don't look right, just my opinion. Everyone will differ on that. Fair play to you. I've got some chrome pegs. I think they were made by Blank, but whatever, I've taken off all of the writing because it didn't look right. Nothing screams I don't belong on a bike than some stupid branding, if it isn't original Midschool branding. Got some RNC cranks made by a company in America called RNC. They have a titanium axle. I bought those really cheap. They were absolutely battered. I put about a week's work into those. Again, satin black paint, looks just like the original anodizing. They look absolutely brilliant. And the reason I wanted to use those is because I've got that grind disc, and I know from experience that if you put something like profiles on those grind discs, they look like twigs. They look really silly. It's just a look I don't like. I like it to look super beefy, and I wanted some crank arms to match. So that's what I used. Talking of the grind disc, yep, new old stock KHE grind disc with a 43 tooth chain ring. Sorry, my eyes ain't what they used to be. Got my glasses on. I've got a CNC Arcane 22mm bottom bracket, a Mongoose Pro 31.8mm seat clamp. That's what this frame needs. A Fusion 25.6 repot post with a shim in it, because obviously I didn't realise that the frame was that big. It uses a 27.2 post. This thing is absolutely ridiculous when it comes to being overbuilt, and that's why I bought it, and that's why I love it, and that's why it will never be for sale. I've got a pivot fat seat. I got that one from Satan's BMX. It was only 20 quid, so fair play, but I don't like the shop and I won't use it much, and I've not mentioned the actual real name of it because I won't. Got an SRAM chain. Again, I used to have problems with these in the past. If you had a really big fat chain, it would bite into the back of the grind disc and keep pulling the chain off, and it would ruin the inside of the grind disc and eventually ruin your chain. So yeah, I just wanted it to work. This thing has been set up as I would have intended to ride it all those years ago, and not specifically just to look at, although it did come out really well. Now, the frame came to me, it was covered in scratches, it was filthy, it was greasy, and what had happened is the dirt had gone into the scratches and made it all look sort of really bad. There was also some damage to the original decals, and the original decals hadn't stuck very well because this frame has been powder coated. I'm a div sometimes. Yeah, and because it's powder coating, it was covered in orange peel, and that means that stickers don't stick to it very well, and that's always been the case. But I didn't want to repaint it because, according to Brad, this finish is very unusual because it wasn't supposed to look anything like that at all. He picked out an orange and he picked out a metal flake, and the guy put pearl over it instead, and it turned into salmon. What it should look like is my Morales. It should have been a dark orange just like that, with a flake over the top, but happy accidents and all that, it is now salmon, and I like it. So put in about 3 or 4 days of cutting that back with polishes and compounds and you name it. Remade the decals because I do all that in house. Stopped paying £100 for decals years ago. It's a racket. And yeah, what you see is what I've come up with. It's taken me 2 or 3 weeks to do this. The cranks were about a week of that. Rest of it was waiting for parts. And yeah, another absolute tank, and another one that will be going lovingly into my collection of absolute tanks. Unrideable absolute tanks, especially when you're 50 years old like I am. Now, I don't normally say thank you to people, because obviously I've paid them and stuff like that, but this time I'm going to, because this time I reached out for a little bit of help and I got it in bucket loads. So firstly, I want to thank Brad Hodges. Reached out to Brad, and Brad's been an absolute legend, told me all about the bike company and all of the information that no one had, told me about the handlebars, no one knew what they were. Yeah, just great guy. You can tell he's still very, very passionate about his company, even though it went defunct in the year 2000. Obviously the guy's got a lot of fond memories of that, and what I'm hoping to do is to get Brad on Skype and talk to him more about 4Bike Company and what he is doing now, because apparently he's still making frames now. I want to thank Mike. Mike will know who Mike is. That's who I got the frame and bars off and the KG disc. I want to thank AD Jones for sending me a set of American cups for the bottom bracket, because I didn't have any and I didn't want to pay 50 quid for an American bottom bracket because the old school have jacked all the prices up. So you can F yourselves, old school. I want to thank Rob for the cranks. Nice and cheap. Really were absolutely fantastic. Lot of work, but you get out what you put in. And I want to thank Owen Clegg for the Dragonfly decals. He offered them up on a page I'm on Facebook, and straight away I thought, got to have that decal. And something absolutely freakish happened with that, because I stuck it to my frame, and then after I spoke to Brad again through messaging, I looked at Brad's frames again, and Brad did an updated version of the frame in the year 2000 called the Battletech 2000, and on his frame, the first one, he's got one of those Dragonfly decals. What are the odds of that? That is like 1 in a million, isn't it? I suppose some things are just meant to be, and that's the way I feel about all of my bikes. I'm not particularly out looking for them when they show up, but they show up and immediately I just know whether I want one or not. Now, I'd never heard of the 4Bike Company. I do remember seeing this frame on eBay a few years ago. It must be this one, because how many more of them are going to be in the UK? And I thought about it and I thought, oh, that looks like a right tank. I really like that. But when I went back to buy it, it was gone. So I'd imagine that Mike bought that, because Mike's a bit of a fucker for some Midschool stuff. He's got quite a lot of it, I hear. He's he's got a ton full of it, mate. So yeah, so that's how the bike turned out. Absolutely stoked with it. Like I say, I have actually weighed this one. I've got myself some scales. 38.1 pounds. It's ridiculous. Both the top and the down tube are 2-inch, just like the Morales. They don't look like that though, but they are. And it is hilariously overbuilt. One of the things that I noticed though is how well designed this frame is, and back then it was difficult. Yeah, if you want to ask how difficult it was, go and ask Ron Wilkerson, because he designed quite a few frames that just didn't work very well, and I will be covering those in videos in the future. But yeah, when you actually sit down as a bike mechanic and you try and build one, you realise that they just ain't right. Now this, on the other hand, it's amazing. It's just like, it bolted up so well, and for a frame that's just sold as a frame, it shows that the guy that designed these put in a lot of work in making sure that everything that you put on it was going to work. The rear stays, the chain stays, I thought they were one big tube that had been bent and then welded to a box, but they're not. They're two separate tubes, and they intersect with a V, kind of like the handlebars, only they're welded in the middle, which is like, it's just madness. Like, but in a good way, you know what I mean? It shows that someone's thought, how do I make this even stronger than bending around one tube? Oh no, I'll make it out of two and then weld it all together. It's just absolutely insane. So yeah, I'm hoping, I've reached out to Brad, I've sent him another message, and I've asked him if he would be happy to meet me on Skype or Discord or something and talk about this. I'd love to get a recording of that. In which case there will be a follow-up on this, and you'll be able to learn all from the man himself. Otherwise, Brad, I hope I've done your bike justice, mate, and yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. So I've got another video coming up in about 3 days. I know that because there's another one sat down next to this downstairs. I've just got to change 2 parts, and you'll be getting another video in a couple of days. Gotta love the nice weather, ain't ya? Alright, now you guys and girls all take care. See, I can't even speak today. Care, and enjoy your summer, and I will see you in a few days. See you later.